The announcement arrived at the exact moment Mom set the cranberry sauce on the table. Thanksgiving 2022 had gathered us once again around the long oak dining table inside our family's farmhouse in Asheville, North Carolina, the same table where Dad once inked contracts for Grayson Timberworks, the business that bore our name for nearly 3 decades. Before we eat, Dad said from the head of the table, carving knives still in hand, "I have something important to tell you." His voice carried the same authority I had grown up hearing. The voice of a man accustomed to making choices that changed lives. Ethan, 38, and Claire, 34, straightened in their seats like children anticipating a surprise. At the far end, I sat quietly at 31, already bracing for what I knew was coming. The late-night conversations between Mom and Dad had given it away weeks earlier. "As you know," he continued, "Grayson Timberworks has been the backbone of this family for 29 years. I built it from nothing, took risks, worked, nights sacrificed so you could all have opportunities I never had." Ethan nodded in admiration. "Dad, what you've built is incredible. Everyone in the region knows the Grayson name." Dad allowed himself a faint smile. "But I'm 70. Now, your mother and I want to enjoy our remaining years. Travel, spend time with the grandchildren, live without stress." Claire's eyes lit up. "So, does this mean you're ready to let Ethan and me take over?" The room's energy shifted. When Dad's expression hardened, he said carefully, "We've decided to sell Grayson Timberworks. The offer we received is simply too good to refuse." The silence was so heavy, even the grandfather clock seemed to stop. "Sell?" Ethan's voice cracked. "Dad, this is our legacy. You've both had 15 years to step in," Dad replied firmly. "Ethan, you've been busy in Silicon Valley building apps. Claire, you've been focused on your interior design business. Neither of you showed interest in Timberworks until now." The truth cut deep. They had imagined inheriting the company, letting managers handle the work while they collected pro-Fazaa retirement plan disguised as loyalty. "But we could learn," Claire argued weakly. "We could bring in new ideas, expand into modern markets." Dad shook his head. "That ship has sailed. You've never set foot in a lumberyard. You don't know kiln-dried oak from pressure-treated pine. You think management is posting on Instagram and choosing fonts. The reality is, neither of you ever cared about Timberworks beyond treating it as a safety net." Ethan flushed red. "Dad, that isn't fair. We're your children. We deserve to inherit what you built." "Deserve nothing," Dad snapped. "Inheritance is earned and not handed out like pie after dinner. And neither of you has earned the right to lead this company." Tears welled in Claire's eyes. "So you're selling to strangers who don't care about our name or employees?" "Selling to people who will protect both," Dad said evenly. "Summit Holdings has an impeccable reputation. They've promised to keep every employee and retain the management team." At that, Ethan and Claire exchanged a hopeful glance. "How much?" Ethan asked. Dad's chest lifted with pride. $140 million, Summit's offer. "Reflects everything I've built. The equipment, contracts, goodwill." Claire clapped. $140 million. "Dad, that's incredible." "It is," he agreed with a final smile. "And your mother and I intend to enjoy every dollar. We'll buy a retirement home in Hilton Head, take that Danube River cruise, and finally live stress-free." The message was clear. Ethan and Claire wouldn't see a cent. "But what about us?" Ethan's voice cracked. "You'll leave something for your children, won't you?" Dad shook his head. "I'll leave you what my father left me, the chance to carve your own path. It's the same chance I had when I launched Timberworks with $6,000 and an old truck." I had stayed silent until now, watching my siblings swing between confusion, hope, and outrage. At last, I leaned forward, heart pounding. "Dad, who exactly is Summit Holdings?" He turned, startled, almost as if he'd forgotten I was there. Throughout adulthood, I had been the quiet one, the sibling who left Asheville for finance, rarely speaking during family business talks. The truth was, I had been building something larger all along. Summit Holdings wasn't just a name tossed around. It was a private investment firm in Charlotte that specialized in acquiring regional companies, scaling them nationwide, especially in construction and manufacturing. And you're sure they'll take care of Timberworks? Dad asked, still gripping his glass like a gavel. Absolutely, I answered. I've done my due diligence. Summit has the record, the financing, the commitment to family legacies. I set down my glass, my pulse racing. But Dad, there's something you should know about Summit Holdings. His brow furrowed. What's that, Harper? I am Summit Holdings. The silence cut sharp, the ticking clock suddenly deafening. What? Do you mean? Dad whispered. I mean, I own Summit Holdings. Founded it 4 years ago. I'm the one who made the $40 million offer. Ethan gaped. That's impossible. Harper, you do accounting or something? No, I corrected. Calm but firm. I run private equity and commercial development deals. Summit Holdings is my company. We manage $340 million in assets family businesses. Timber, real estate. Claire shook her head in disbelief. You're joking. 40 million. Yes, I said simply, pulling a thick folder of contracts from my bag. I'm paying Dad to ensure his legacy survives. My name is on every page. Dad's face drained of color. But the lawyer said Summit was a Charlotte firm. They were right, I told him. I moved there for the opportunity. You thought I was crunching spreadsheets? I was studying Timberworks, preparing this deal for 2 years. I stood, glancing at the backyard where Dad once taught me to sand wood and swing a hammer. Summit isn't a faceless corporation. It's me, the kid who learned business by watching you. The difference is, I never forgot where I came from. Ethan pulled out his phone, his fingers racing across the screen as if Google could erase the truth. Mom whispered softly, almost to herself, Harper, you never showed interest in timber. That's what you always believed, I replied. But everything changed the day I realized I could build something bigger. And what came next left you all speechless. I let the weight of my words settle. This isn't outsiders coming in, Dad. It's your daughter making sure your life's work doesn't just survive, but thrives. His expression sharpened, the way it always did when a serious business discussion was on the table. We've mapped out over $150 million in development opportunities across Virginia, Tennessee, and Georgia, I explained. Grayson Timberworks would be the foundation of that growth. I slid another folder across the table. And this isn't just expansion for me. It creates real advancement for your people, for your legacy team. Project managers could step into regional leadership roles. Site supervisors could oversee multi-state operations. Even the administrative staff could move into business development and strategic planning. Dad nodded slowly, his mind already calculating possibilities. And the Grayson name, I added, remains untouched. Summit Holdings acts as the parent company, but every acquisition keeps its own identity, Grayson. Timberworks will always be Grayson, Timberworks only with larger resources, more ambitious projects, and long-term security. Across the table, Ethan barely looked up from his phone. Harper, this says Summit Holdings has managed more than $800 million worth of projects. That's right, I said. Claire's jaw dropped. And you own this? I founded it. I replied calmly. I hold 78% equity. The remaining shares belong to 2 strategic partners. Claire's eyes widened as she did the math. So your net worth is around $240 million, roughly, I confirmed. Without factoring in this acquisition, the silence that followed felt heavier than anything I'd experienced. $240 million. Mom whispered. That's the current valuation, I said. It fluctuates, but that's the range. Dad leaned back, studying me with an expression I had never seen before. The indulgent smile he usually reserved for his quiet daughter was gone. In its place was a steady, reverent look, one he normally saved for high-stakes negotiations. Harper, he said at last, if you own Summit Holdings, why pay full market price? Why not simply tell me and work out a family deal? I drew in a breath. This was the part that mattered most. Because I don't want to inherit Grayson Timberworks, I said softly. I want to earn it. I want you to choose Summit because we're the right partner, not because I'm your daughter. And by paying full value, you and Mom have complete financial security for retirement. You've earned the right to enjoy every cent of what you built. I looked around the table at their stunned faces. This isn't the end of your legacy. It's the next chapter. Ethan finally set down his phone. Awe spreading across his face. Dad Summit Holdings was recognized by the Southeast Construction Alliance. They developed that mixed-use complex in Charlotte that won the Green Building Award last year. Claire's voice trembled. And the hospital expansion in Raleigh, they were featured in Architectural Digest. That was your company. I nodded. That was us. Dad leaned forward, eyes fixed on mine. Harper, how long have you been planning this? Honestly, since I was 16, I said. The summer you let me help with payroll, that's when I realized construction wasn't only about lumber and machinery, was finance, strategy, and relationships. I wanted to learn all of it. Then why didn't you tell us? Claire asked quietly. Because I needed to prove myself, I explained. If I had told you 8 years ago that I was launching an investment firm focused on construction, what would you have said? Dad sighed. I probably would have told you it was too risky and tried to step in. Exactly, I replied. And then every win would have looked like favoritism instead of earned achievement. Ethan frowned. So where does this leave us? You're worth hundreds of millions, buying Dad's company for $40 million. Do we get cut out completely? It was a fair question, one I'd wrestled with for months. What do you want, Ethan? I asked gently. I don't know, he admitted. I turned to Claire and you. She hesitated, then sighed. I always assumed I'd inherit a third of whatever Dad built. But maybe what he really gave us was the chance to build something of our own. And I never took it. Dad's voice was steady. Harper understood that lesson and acted on it. You two didn't. But it's not too late, I said firmly. Summit Holdings is always looking for people who share our values. If you're serious about learning this industry, there could be a place for you. Ethan's eyes lit up. You mean working for you? Working with me, I corrected. Starting where I started, project coordination, client relations, safety compliance. It's a real work that teaches you how things get built. They both fell silent, weighing the offer. I could see their pride wrestle with hesitation. They'd expected to inherit a kingdom. Instead, they were being invited to build their own thrones. The difference, it's told them, is that Summit can give you what Grayson Timberworks never could: larger projects, broader markets, advanced training, and a leadership path based on merit, not bloodline. Dad gave a subtle but approving nod. That's the right approach, Harper. They need to earn it the way you did. What began as a tense Thanksgiving dinner eventually became a strategic partnership. The acquisition closed smoothly, with Dad deeply impressed by Summit's resources and the respect we brought to every detail. Ethan surprised me most. He took an entry-level role as a project coordinator, humbly starting where I once had. With Dad's mentorship and my guidance, he discovered his strengths in client relations and problem solving, finally finding work he loved. Claire chose a different path, expanding her design business to specialize in branding and interiors for commercial development. She became one of Summit's go-to creative consultants, blending artistry with strategy. And Dad didn't disappear into retirement. Instead, he became a consultant for Summit, advising on client relationships, mentoring new managers, and passing on decades of wisdom. 6 months later, I stood at the podium at our first annual Grayson Timberworks Employee Gala, held at the same country club where Dad had toasted contracts for 30 years. Only this time the celebration wasn't about holding onto the past. It was about building the future, looking out at the employees, now partners in a larger vision, at Ethan and Claire. No longer heirs, but contributors, and at Dad. whose pride glowed brighter than ever. I realized something. The strongest family. Businesses aren't frozen in time, they evolve. They honor tradition while embracing innovation. They preserve values while seizing opportunity. That Thanksgiving announcement hadn't been an ending. It was only the beginning.